Hello Duelists, it's Tombox here, welcome to MST.TV, and what am I doing down here? Well, today's video is going to be a list video going from the least popular to the most popular of the most meta deck of the format. Now this is actually based off of the tournament results over the past weekend, from the ARGs to the regionals, and this is also the videos that have surfaced all over YouTube. You guys kind of get the idea, and for each of these decks, I'll talk about one thing that you should probably care about that they can do to you, one of the big combos that they can do perhaps, and also one thing that you can use to counter them. That's the best thing I got for you guys. So, you know, maybe I'll go into a bit more depth depending on how much knowledge I know about these decks. Perhaps you guys can throw your input regarding about these decks or whether or not there's a deck in here that's missing to you. Anyways, guys, let's get started at number 5. At number 5, we have Spirals. Before Spirals made this list, I was actually a little bit surprised. I thought Trick Stars was gonna be up here, but apparently, you know, rip Trick Stars, they didn't make this list. Well, Spirals, on the other hand, I believe 2 places have tops of Spirals within the top 8 range, and for good reason. They actually shifted their builds towards more of a Spiral control. They have more control elements such as Scapegoats. They have Link access so that they don't die as fast. It's a tough control. They just like to pew pew off your board, and remember that Sleeper is still very much a real threat. Even though with the ban list taking away 2 copies of Spiral Resorts, your last resort is still there, and your Sleeper combo is still very much alive, so it's very dangerous if your opponent actually gets that kind of setup. And remember, Spirals are still very good at breaking boards. Super Agents are very good at popping the back row. We have Tough that can call off your top card. Drone messing up your draws. Those are still very real threats that you still have to deal with. And just because they don't have the consistency as before and they don't have their wombo combo plays, doesn't mean that they can't do the same stuff. The double Helix plus, I guess, 1919 plus the, what was it, Decode Talker is still an immediate OTK. So they have quick access to that. And Quick Fix is still annoying as ever, searching out all the tools that they need to actually get there. So how do you actually stop Spirals from going off? Well, the first thing is just Ash and stop. Ash or Ogre off the Spiral double Helix. That's one of the best ways. Or get rid of the Quick Fix, because Quick Fix is going to get them a ton of stuff. Or for those of you who are running an extra deck, or you want to go into a more budget option, if you open your play, why not try Abyss Dweller to prevent them from accessing their graveyard? Because a lot of the stuff activate in the graveyard to actually help them get that advantage. So that's some ways of actually surviving against this deck, but this isn't the big threat anymore. Number 4, we have Dinosaur Shaddolls. This deck is definitely picking up in popularity with multiple tops across multiple regionals, and let me just tell you, this deck is very scary, especially when you go first against this deck. If you set up anything with links, just be prepared to deal with the onslaught that comes from the Shaddoll Fusion. So for the combo that I want to tell you about is simply just their Shaddoll Fusion combo. It starts off with 1 Shaddoll Fusion thanks to your Link monster being on the field, and then they're going to send the Cultist into the grave, and they're probably sending a Shaddoll monster. Both being dark, they're going to get themselves a nice window. Even though they lock themselves out of summoning more cards from the extra deck, they still have 1 special summon available. And then since Cultist was sent to the graveyard, remember, it has multiple effects. The summoning condition is putting 5 banished cards back into the deck. Cool. Second effect is that when sent to the graveyard, you get yourself an Evolution Pill card. And the third effect is that you can destroy a monster, kind of like how UCT destroys a monster to Book of Eclipse the entire board. This one, instead, you can actually negate spells and traps, which is huge for dinosaurs, since usually they can't exactly do too well in that sector. Now, regardless, once they get the window out, they can actually play the pill, since they already have a spellcaster in the grave thanks to the Shaddoll monster, and then they already have a dinosaur in the grave. They can banish both of them and summon out Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, or they can go with the Overtex. So how do you stop that? You might as well use the Ash Blossom Joyous Spring on that and just call it a day, because no one wants to deal with it. You need to Ash this combo, and worst yet, the thing is, it's a 1-for-1, and now your opponent can still go off with a regular dinosaur play, which is they can go into summon out their Oviraptor, and from Oviraptor, well, you know how the shenanigan goes. They can just really just build up a nasty board and try to control the board, whether or not they go into Logia, whether or not they go into Trishula. That's up to how they play their deck. But that's just the basics of Shaddoll Dinosaur. Remember, they have about 5 cards that are Shaddolls in their deck, and then they have a bunch of quick dinosaurs. Some of them are even playing Armageddon Knight just to throw the overtext in there, just to get the double evolution pill to get that quick setup. Overall, dinosaurs are still dinosaurs. They are still very fast with triple fossil dig. They can easily set up their board. They have one of the most consistent engines available to them, which is like triple Stratos. At number 3, we have Lightsworns. Shoutouts to Aznpersuasion for topping with this deck, and also there was multiple variants actually top of this deck, which is why it was so curious of me to actually look into this deck. Now, Curious is the monster that you're gonna actually summon out pretty easily. Now, this whole deck is a mill-based deck. Deck Synergy, Snows, all the package of the graveyard. Remember Infernoids, similar to that with that kind of level of control. Now, it's a control-based deck, and it uses the graveyard as synergy, but Curious lets you fetch out any card, so it basically unbricks your deck. It gives you a free Foolish Burial, as well as when you remove Curious, it will let you add another card back to your hand. And whenever someone activates something, I believe you can actually mill 3 cards with Curious. So there's tons of milling synergy here. And the power play here is that they have a very easy access to get into Curious, starting off with a Orphis Scorpio. If you summon out the Orphis Scorpio, you go into the Brilliant Fusion to Darling Tonia Cobra. Since you have both monsters, they're both level 3s, you exceed into MX Saber Invoker, which brings out Thousand Blades out on the field. You link both of them off into Mrs. Radiant because they're both Earth. And now you have 2 link zones, which lets you play the Brilliant Fusion, which throws the Trick Clown and the Garnet into the graveyard. And from there, you summon out that the Trick Clown. The Trick Clown deals you 1000 damage, which brings out and triggers off your Thousand Blade, and from there you have 3 Earth monsters and 1 Light monster on the field, the Trick Clown being the Light. You have a Beast, a Fairy, and you have a Warrior, and that meets the condition for Curious. And you still have 1 additional normal summon thanks to the fact you have Seraphinite on the field. So all in all, it's basically a 1.5 card combo that leads you all the way there, and now you get a free mill of anything. You could even mill out another Wolf, keep going, and Curious also opens up your zones. So you tell me what you want to do with this. You can even go into Skull Dread and fix your dead hand. There's so much opportunity with this deck, especially with a combo like that, and without Maxi to challenge you, you're gonna be stopped another way by just stopping you dead in your tracks. They can use Drone Lockbird to stun out the combo after the first search of Brilliant Fusion. I would stop it right there because any further is a bit too late in my opinion, and you can also Ash the Brilliant Fusion. Anything else, I feel like it's kind of redundant, kind of pointless. At number 2, we have a True Draco Demise. Of course, this deck is going to be here, the only deck that doesn't really rely on link summoning. It's more of a tribute summoning deck, but their biggest win condition is that they have 4 skill drains. 1 from Skill Drain and 3 from the Monarch's Eruption. Yeah, so that card basically shuts out any deck that's trying to play Monster Effect, and most decks really suffer once they get to that point. Although some people can use like Scapegoats and kind of go further with that, but overall it's going to be a huge struggle since most of these decks right now are super dependent on monster effects, and until you can actually clear off some of their monsters, it's going to be very difficult. And don't forget, they have Monarch Stormforth to tribute off your monster as well, so it's going to be in a bit of an uphill battle if you fight this deck, especially in the game 1 where most people don't have their Twin Twisters or Cosmic Cyclones available. That's going to suck. But in the game 1s, you do have hand traps. Drone Lockbird on the terraforming is a definite plus because they don't get their Dragonic Diagram off, and if you use Diagram, use your Ghost Ogres. I don't really recommend using Ash on it because they can still use the next turn and you give yourself a bit of a -1 there. But once you get into the sideboard game, definitely try out using Evenly Matched to wipe the board because they have to commit to the board to actually do anything, and they don't exactly run the most amount of negation. Most likely they're going to negate it with like a Solemn Judgment, which will cost them half their life. But overall, they'll still probably leave their big boss monster that's probably a masterpiece that's immune to everything on the field. But luckily, it won't have as much ammo as you might think, due to the fact that Evenly Matched will get rid of it, most of those cards. But yeah, that's just my say. Unfortunately, I don't really have any kind of budget things to do, aside from just using spell trap removal to get rid of those spells and traps before it's too late. So number 1, it's pretty obvious which one is this deck. It's Pendulum Magicians, of course, even though Skullcrobat's gone and the other card, Double Iris Magician, is gone. In fact, I feel like the deck got even stronger and a bit nastier, as if they were going to take these cards out anyway. Well, probably not like Skulk or Bat, but like they might have taken out Double Iris anyway for this variant, just because it is so fast. Now, what did they replace it with? They have triple Oath Dragon, triple this, triple that. There's just a ton of magicians. The whole deck is like 30 plus monsters with maybe like 5 spells or traps. It's just all gas. It's just a gasoline deck, and it has an all-you-can-eat hand trap buffet in there. You can eat the hand trap and keep going off. Ash is not very good against this deck. Let me just tell you that right now. Ash does not do enough in this deck because seriously, you can't stop it. It's very difficult to stop. And the second thing is, even Droll and Lockbird, if you don't Droll at the right time, they can still put out a really big board because they're not really dependent on adding cards to the hand. They're more about throwing cards from the deck to the extra deck and then fetching it out of the extra deck instead. That's what's kind of nasty about the deck. And they have negations, spell trap negations, through the access of 2 level 6s spellcasters. They can make a Norito, and Norito can negate spells and traps. And if they're playing the additional Mythical Beast engine, they have monster negations as well. They're just running a ton of negations, and if they manage to get out 2 sorcerers, they're going to an Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, which leads into an Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Just tons and tons of negation, setting up those big boards. And all it really requires is to set up 2 monsters, 2 pendulum monsters on the field, and most of these are free. They can use a Foolish Berry or a Dragon Shrine to throw Dark Worm into the graveyard, which then will give you a free monster summon and a free scale. And then they can even normal summon a monster and they're basically done. Or some people are even running the Abyss Actor Curtain Riser, which if you just put it on the scale, you can just special summon it onto the field as long as you control no monsters. You can do that effect once per duel. And another engine you can use would be the Mythical Beast engine. You just activate Master Cerberus, pop it, get a Jackal, pop the Jackal, Master Cerberus is now on the field. So tons of ways to actually just put out 2 pendulums and then they just go off. Astrograph. So the main thing is, once they get that far, you better know what you're doing and you better know how to break their board. Hopefully they make a misplay along the way and don't set up the perfect board to actually negate everything, or else it's actually going to be a huge struggle. Consider using Lava Golem, Winged Dragon, or Raw Sphere mode to break some of these boards, because a lot of the times they actually can just use the extra deck for most of the summon, the pendulum summon, rather than using their hand. So that's also huge, which means they have resources afterwards. So yeah, it gets kind of annoying. And they also have Omega plays. Harmonizing Magician will actually give them the Omega. They just have access to most of the cards in their extra deck very easily. One of the biggest problems is Electromite. You can actually hit it with a Ghost Ogre as soon as possible. You can't Ash it because it doesn't exactly draw a card until it already got off the other 2 effects. So just get rid of it so they don't get to keep it. That means they can't even pendulum summon properly. But remember, they can do most of these summons without using their normal summon. So it's very likely they can go into a second Electromite and keep going. So another card I would recommend, just Reaper the Electromite. Once you Reaper the Electromite, it's so much easier. That matchup is just a lot easier once you don't have to deal with them building the nastiest board against you. So Reaper them, Ogre them. Ash is not very good. You can Droll them. Drolling them will just stop the Astrograph from adding cards to your hand. So that is all I got for this video. If you guys enjoyed this summary of the top decks currently in the format, hit me up with a thumbs up. If hopefully you guys didn't have to do too much research, but you can use this as a focal point to just search out these decks mentioned right there. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, hit me up with a subscribe. And as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job. And you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.